Get it?
My presentation, I did effects of pesticides and herbicides on humans and the environment. And a background on pesticides and herbicides. So basically, pesticides are a substance or a chemical used to kill insects or organisms that are harmful to plant life. And herbicides is a substance or chemical also that is harmful to certain plants and kills unwanted vegetation. So, for instance, weed kill, that's an example of herbicides. And Roundup is an example of herbicides and pesticides because it kills also insects and weeds. The history of it, since 2000 BC, pesticides have been used in Mesopotamia where it first has been found. And the first pesticide that was used was an elemental sulfur that's being used in ancient Sumer. Okay, so different types of pesticides. So bactericide, it kills all bacteria on plants, and it's insect and animal repellent. It's basically like, how's it said, like insect and animal repellent, so it steers away insect and animals. Fungicide, it kills off fungus. Antimicrobial kills off smaller animals, and rodenticide, it kills off rodents such as rats and mice, basically. So the common types of herbicides are contact herbicides. So basically, when the herbicide comes in contact with a plant, it kills it on contact. And systematic herbicide is basically a herbicide that it goes into the leaves or its stems, and it goes through the central nervous system and attacks it that way and kills it from the inside out. Then I have this picture right here showing different ways how herbicides and pesticides affect insects. So direct contact up there, secondary contact, ingested if it eats it, repellent, it has nothing to do with it, fumigant, smell, deters them away, and learn and kill. So the effects on the economy. So for every dollar spent on pesticides, it saves approximately $4. In 2017, the global market for pesticides was $65.3 billion. The top exports, which surprised me really, was Germany was number one over China, and USA and France were even at $3.4 billion. Let's see if it works. It has like a rank of the countries, like the consumption in millions of kilograms. So look at China compared to everyone else. Basically, it's head and shoulders above the United States and Argentina. Which is fairly expected nowadays since everything comes from China. So. Then I have this. This came from the Asia Pacific. The stats in 2013, 2017, and the total number of children infected, as you can see, was 1148, and 552 via toxic fumes and drift, and 596 from food, which I'm not surprised about, and 42 total deaths. I'm surprised about the death total. That would be a little bit lower, but yeah, but most of the children were affected were 17 years and younger in the China area, which is not surprising at all.
Wait, that's global?
No, it's just in Asia Pacific.
No.
Yeah. It affects on wildlife, so it's from the U.S. Most of the 1,700 endangered plants and animals are affected by two of the most common pesticides. Malathion is used to treat fruits and vegetables and plants for pests. And chloropyrifos it smells like rotten eggs, so it's kind of used like to deter animals from smelling bad, and it's used to exterminate termites, mosquitoes, and roundworms. So it basically said, while I was reading it, basically said 92% of animals in the U.S. come in contact with pesticides and herbicides like almost every day. So I'm very surprised about that. And I have this. For this one, it has really nothing to do with pesticides or herbicides, but it has some things on here, like it's a comparison that pretty much. So it's basically saying like Roundup is one of the least, well, it's the most common commercialized pesticide, but It's one of the least toxic compared to, you can really read it right there, but those, so basically one with the purple top, that is lime sulfur, so it's a natural pesticide. So it basically used like in the Indian area, like in India, and but yeah, but basically most of the natural pesticides are way highly more toxic than the commercial pesticides. What I'm basically trying to say. Okay, so I did this. So I looked up a study online that was conducted in China from 2009 to 2012, and it was based off 3 separate provinces in China. Those two right there, can't really say them, so I'm just gonna let you guys read it off. And they observed long-term and short-term pesticide exposure for 3 years, and they were each 20 to 25 households are randomly selected, and both of them were split into 2 different exposure rates. So group H was a high exposure rate, and group L was a low exposure rate. And the characteristics played a major role in this. It was based off gender, age, height, weight, if you're a current smoker or drinker.
So they were killing your people by exposure to
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So basically I have 3 separate provinces, the average frequencies of it. So the Guangdong was the highest exposure rate, but it was second amount in total hours when applying it. And pesticide use was the highest in that province. And as you can see right here, there was basically no safety at all. They're just skin-to-skin contact. We're basically doing it because only 17 farmers wearing gloves. That's very master gloves. That's very, very, very low. So yeah, basically, but you'll see in the rest of my slides how it affected them. Okay, there were different examinations taken before and after the study was took. So there's certain blood tests, clinical examinations, and neurological examinations that took place. Okay, the blood examinations were a complete blood count, hepatic function, renal function, electrolytes, vitamins, fasting plasma glucose, as you can see here. Then some nerve conduction studies, motor nerves, sensory nerves, just the motor latency and amplitude is such as motor nerves, sensory nerves also. And for neurological examinations were TNSC. TNSC was TNSC was a transport network system compatibilities, and MMSE was many mental state examinations. So basically, all these numbers right here were percentages of abnormalities before the pesticides were once applied, and the second round was after everything was applied, and once the study was over, they did the same blood test, neurological test, and everything over again, see how many people were affected. And as you can see, group H, which was the high exposure group, the numbers are through the roof, basically, compared to the low exposure rate in every single category. So basically double for every single category, except MMSE. So let's take a look at that. I have this, basically like a cycle function of how the pesticides are applied, and basically how insects get used to them, and basically how they make a different pesticide or herbicide that's more stronger, so it can kill off most of the pests. This basically explaining how everything works pretty much. I'll let you guys take a look at that. And my references, that's pretty much it.
Yay! Questions?
Can you go back to the one about the toxicity?
Yeah, I got you.
I had a question. So I see it says number of times more toxic than riboflavin.
Yeah.
Is that based on like the same quantity?
Yeah, based on same quantity,
Same
yeah.
quantity?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does MMSE mean?
It means, I have it right here. It's many mental state examinations. So I don't know like what like examinations are there, but
What is it testing?
basically it's basically testing like, I guess, motor skills and sensory skills, pretty much, basically.
Anybody else? Just really quick, if you go back to your exporter of pesticides, or where you had the information about Germany and China, etc.
Yeah, I got you. Right here?
Yeah. So one of the rationales, maybe it is surprising to some people, for why Germany is a top exporter is Germany has a massive chemical industry.
Yeah.
And they always have. It's been around since World War I. So they're going to be at the top of the list for most chemical production numbers, let's say.
Yeah.
More interesting to me, I guess, is the users. So China, that makes sense. America, that makes sense. We're both in, let's say, the kind of temperate range. Both countries have vast areas where they're able to do a lot of crop planting. But then the third one was Argentina.
Yes. Argentina.
That one's interesting. Do we know what Argentina produces a whole hell of a lot of, other than silver, which is where it gets its name from?
And then, I don't know.
Huh?
Wine.
Wine?
Could be cocoa. I don't know.
Cocoa? It's an actual question. I don't know what Argentina's known for producing.
They might coffee.
Yeah.
Agricultural-wise. Right, but I mean, is that something that we'd consider, do we use lots of pesticides and insecticides in coffee? I have no idea.
You're gonna sit there and eat all your cocoa beans.
Go back to the values. Did you have the amounts that they were using, I guess,
Yeah.
for those three? Oh, right, it was an online thing. It just seems strange. I think China and U.S. blew everyone else out of the water, but so it was a distant third, I think. But it's still strange to see it up near the top. Yeah, I think your Mozilla thing down there is still open, actually.
Oh. Yep.
No, it's actually relatively close to the U.S. Man, the U.S. is way behind China.
Yeah.
If we sum up 2 through 10, we still wouldn't get to China.
Exactly.
So is the other thing that China just goes like super nuts with their pesticides? Like they don't give a damn, they're just going to put it on
basically
anything?
the government, they have little to no involvement on regulation of pesticides.
Uh-huh.
So basically, they're just saying, throw a lot in there and they'll help plants grow, pretty much. That's what they're doing, pretty much.
It's
So.
kind
Each to your own.
of weird.
Oh, dang. 1, 2, you open it a lot. Is it linked to cancer? Like, what, like these pesticides and stuff?
I was looking that up, not really, it was just more of basically like, not really cancer, but basically like other small things like, just mess with your bodily functions, like body levels basically.
Okay.
So it basically kills you off slow.
Fun. Okay, thanks, Malik.
Yep.